Welcome back, everyone, to the 12 Talk podcast. It's been a long time. We shouldn't have left you without a dope beat to step to. Sorry, I've just had to get something out there. My name's Josh. This is Mitch as well. We are the 12 Talk podcast. We have had a little bit of a break because it's the off season. We can. And I finally started my new job. So I have been head buried into that. Before we go any further, Mitch, how are you doing, dude?
Yeah, I'm really good. I feel like we haven't missed too much while we've been off air because it's been a bit slow. But there's been plenty of other things. If you're in the UK and you're into your cricket, there's the Cricket World Cup going on in the monsoon season in the West Indies, which is ridiculous, and in the States as well. That's the interesting bit. The fact we've had cricket games in the World Cup in New York is mad.
Yeah.
And then we've got the Euros going on, so we've got soccer going on at the moment as well.
Wrong shaped ball.
Not many highlights to that for an England fan either. It's a bit drab. Loads going on. Not much NFL related though, which is odd for me. I'm usually knee deep.
Well, this is why we're going to be doing what we're doing today. So Thank you everyone for joining in again. Thank you for everyone who's stayed tuned, who's joined the Discord, who has done any of those bits, who's followed us on X, Insta, the lot. Obviously, if you're liking what we're doing, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share with everyone. Really helps the channel grow. Any comments you want to chuck in, we are live and we're more than happy to discuss anything. And if you've got a viewpoint on what we're saying, let us know and we will happily bring that up. As I said, Discord channel. I never know which way I'm supposed to be pointing with this because my camera's always the wrong way around. There you go, Mitch knows. We've got a Discord channel. You can join us. It's pin post on RX as well. Without further ado, Mitch, should we just hit that intro music?
Let's do it.
Let's go. Well, there we go. And just to completely ruin any algorithm, I completely forgot to say what we're supposed to be discussing on this pod to start with in the cold open, because it's been that long. I'm now back to amateur podcaster status. So today, as you've probably seen from the graphic, I suppose, we're going to be talking running backs and wide receiver rooms. Who is a surprise cut? Who's a surprise inclusion? Who's got a specific role? We've got our ideas. We're going to go through them all with you. And by all means, let us know exactly what you think. If you think that we're talking chuff, as some people may say in the UK, or if you think we're valid, let us know. But without further ado, let's get into this. And as usual, we are here and we proudly support the UK SEAHAWKS. You will see things like the Sea Jack. Mitch and I both have the wristbands. We are proud supporters. If you do want to join, by all means, hit them up. You can go on their Facebook page. The link is in the description. It's £12 for an individual, £20 for a family. You get some amazing goodies. And there's a national meetup that's happening in Glasgow next year. So any Scottish SEAHAWKS, we will see you there. This year, like I said, you get your throwback wristband and patch, you get your membership card, and you get your little RFD card. It's always something a bit weird. And a massive shout out as well to our friends at the German SEAHAWKS. They listen to us, they follow us. We've had Jonas on, and hopefully we've got some more that will come on as well. You can join them for €15. So that's approximately £12.68 or $16. I put pounds there. It's definitely not pounds. $16.06. You get access to the tailgate. It's 10% of the pro shop. There's raffles and competitions, exclusive fan articles and discounts as well. And don't be put off by the fact that it's the German SEAHAWKS, because if you have Google Chrome, there is a beautiful thing on there called Translate. So as soon as you hit on their website, translate it, and all the articles come into English. I spent a lot of time recently going through a lot of them, and they're fantastic. So big shout out to the German SEAHAWKS. So, Mitch, shall we get into this now?
Yeah, let's do it.
Running backs, wide receivers. I think we'll start with the running back, shall we? Let's have a quick look at that running back room as it stands. And if I've missed anyone, Mitch, by all means, throw it at me. I've tried to do the graphics whilst also having my brain boggled about work. So the running back room currently, for anyone looking at watching on YouTube, you will see this up there. If you're not watching on YouTube, listening on Spotify, Apple, whatever the other apps are, we'll go through it anyway. The starter, K9, obviously, has to be. Second, Zach Charbonnet. I think this might be a 1A, 1B scenario this season. You're then looking third. I've got Kenny McIntosh, but I know Mitch is going to have some opinions on this. And fourth, I've lumped all these guys together because they're either UDFAs or they've been brought in from the now UFL. So we've got George Halani, we've got Kobe Lewis, Ricky Person Jr., and Tamarick Lewis. Mitch. Now, I have got some stats and facts for a change from various sources, because I'll be very honest, trying to find college stats on some of these guys was a little bit difficult. And you'll see why when we get into it. But what are your opinions on that depth chart, Mitch?
Well, you mentioned 1A and 1B for Ken Walker and Charbonnet this year. I actually don't think that's what we'll see. Personally, my take is that Ken Walker will get the majority of snaps throughout a game, and I think we'll see Zach Charbonnet used in certain packages, and I think we'll see Kenny McIntosh in certain packages. But I now, as long as Ken Walker can fit the zone running scheme that they're going to play, he possesses such a threat in open field that playing him as a key component of a spread West Coast offense is it could really ignite that scheme. So I think we'll see him get slightly more of a lion's share. So maybe slightly less than a 1B situation for Charbonnet. But then that implies that Ken Walker never sees an injury this year. So there'll be plenty of opportunities for Zach.
Don't get me wrong, he has put on some bulk. The guy looks like an absolute tank right now. If you've seen any of the sort of like the preseason training shots and whatnot, he just seems to have, like, his shoulders have just, there's like an extra few inches on them. His arms look massive. I'm anticipating that he's had to put that bulk on to be the workhorse. And if that's the case, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I could see that as well. There's almost like a no-nonsense kind of approach to this year for Ken Walker. That the locks have gone. He's bold. He's put on some serious bulk. He looks like he's been made and sculpted and just made for the job. Do you know what I mean? There's no sort of thrills now with the appearance. He is just a bowling ball. And I think we'll see more of him as RB1 and used very differently. So Kenny McIntosh, I think we'll see quite a lot of as well. I really think that we can really tap into his skill set this year. He's still a fairly unknown entity to most 12s, actually, because of his injury last year. It wasn't even in the preseason games, was it? It was in the intra-squad friendly at Lumen, or the skirmishes that they do. So, yeah, he didn't even see preseason action, did he? So, lots to be seen there. Regarding RB4, I'm not sure we carry a fourth running back onto the roster this year. I think we see Halani and Ricky Person go to practice squad and hope that one of them doesn't get poached. One of them may go from practice squad, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, when I was sort of doing my research on these, I think we all know K9 by now. Charbonnet showed what he could do. Obviously, he vaporized that guy by the goal line last season, which I think got me off my seat possibly the most. If that was this season, that would definitely be coming into my Here Comes the Boom segment, because the guy was just dusted, folded like a deck chair. And then Kenny McIntosh, I was high on when we drafted him. I mean, you look at what his last season with Georgia, what was it? It was 829 yards, 150 attempts, so 5.5 yards per carry. Not quite as good as his average was in 2019, was a freshman, where it was 25 attempts for 7 yards. Touchdowns, however, rushing in his last season at Georgia, 10 rushing, 2 receiving. You know, he's a receiving threat. He had 43 receptions and 505 yards receiving. I love me a bit of Kenny McIntosh. I can't help it. I just think he's massively he was unfortunate last year, but he could be a massive part of this offense.
Yeah, he's a really good instinctive runner as well. Like, one of the reasons he was so good was that field vision and instinctively putting himself in advantageous positions. If he's going to get tackled, then he'll put himself in a situation that he thinks he can get, you know, a tackle he can break, or you know, he had a really high football IQ and field combined with field vision. So it didn't matter too much that he wasn't electric, because he'd get an extra 10 yards or 5 yards on a run just by making really good decisions and timing them well. So there's a lot of potential there for him to be one of the best wide receiver threes in the league, if not the best. Honestly, that's an embarrassment of riches. So that's how I feel there.
I think the same. I mean, I think Halani, like I said, I think for this it's going to be between Halani and Person as to who's going to be practice squad and who might get kicked up to the game day squad, depending on injuries. Looking through sort of the stats, I mean, Halani in his last season at Boise State, 7 touchdowns, 748 yards rushing, off 134 attempts. Season before, however, 2022, 221 attempts, 1,157 yards rushing, and 10 tutties. I'd take that.
Yeah, he's a good red zone threat. It's an interesting one, because the profile, if you had Halani as RB4, or if Halani saw a lot of game day call-ups to the roster, you'd have 4 very different running backs. You'd have a red zone threat in Halani. You'd see a genuine dual threat in Kenny McIntosh, and some special teams sort of expertise. You'd see a very physical runner in Charbonnet, and you'd see an open field threat in Ken Walker, in a highly athletic, quick threat there. So they're really different profiles, actually. I really like the spread you get with those, and it wouldn't be the first time that someone had a running back on the roster just for red zone situations. Ezekiel Elliott's made a career out of being a short distance, punch it in kind of guy. So, although I think Zach Charbonnet would be pretty upset if short and running situations, we saw the practice squad guy getting the tuddies instead of backing Zach Charbonnet to be physical on a 3-yard run. But it makes for a very good situation coming in for a player on the roster. If you had to replace Zach or Ken, whichever one was the bell cow on that day, if they were gassed by the time you get to the end zone, you've got a guy there that's made a college career out of finishing off drives. So whoever's covering for the injured player, you've got a good complement there. So that's a really interesting situation, I think.
Yeah, and then you look at the others. We've got Ricky Person Jr., who I know you quite like. I looked at his stallion stats; they weren't amazing. But then looking at his college stats, not amazing either, if I'm being completely honest. So his last season at North Carolina State, 135 attempts, 636 yards rushing, 4.7 as an average, 5 touchdowns. And then 28 receptions for 240 yards, 2 touchdowns. Meh is what I'll say. But
I'm going to mention something here, right? And this promises that it'll be a tangent, but it's not. Trust me. what was Pete's biggest mantra? What was his big saying, right? What was the thing that's plastered all over? Always compete, right? And what have we taken down from the Wolves? Always compete. That's come down, right? I mean, those along with a lot of pictures of Richard Sherman have come down, right? So how do you say always
angry?
How do you say to the team always compete without having catchy slogans and pictures up? You have a packed running back room, and you go and take the key running back from a UFL title winning team and put him behind your undrafted free agent and your talented running back 1, 2, and 3, and go, here's a guy who's actually won something in his career. He's fighting for your spot on the roster, without saying always compete, without putting the signs up. So that for me is a really good thing. But then when you look at the rest of our off season, we went out and got Laviska Shenault to add to a wide receiver unit that was already extremely competitive. We already look at it and think, is Tariq Young going to make this? Is Eskridge going to make this? A second round pick a few years ago. You look at that unit and you think, my God, who is going to make that? And they go out and get Laviska Shenault and give him guaranteed money. But should we have seen this coming when we had Reek Woolen, Trey Brown, Mike Jack, Devin Witherspoon, and then we picked 2 cornerbacks? And you look at what we just did with the offensive line. We've packed it with like 9 players that could realistically make a run for the starting role. Look at the D-line. We've done it at every single position. We've packed it. So without saying always compete every 5 minutes, we've lit a fire under every positional group this offseason. Just food for thought.
Yep, no, fair enough. I'll give you that. Let's talk about the other 2 as well. So I'll be very honest. Tamarick Lewis, I'll start there because I couldn't find anything on him. I scoured the internet. And Mitch, you might have something because you are our stats man. If not, that says a lot, really.
No, I don't. I know that we weren't the only team trying to pick him up, and I think that says something. There's obviously some there's some traits there that people like. When you pick up players as UDFAs for the running back room, whether they're going to be challenging for genuinely for running back 3, or whether they're going to be practice squad backups, they've either been really productive in a lower level division, or they've been a backup to a really talented running back, seen less ball and less productivity because of that, or there are a few red flags with their athletic profile. There's always something missing. Tamarick Lewis, for me, I can't really work out exactly what meant that he didn't get drafted, but I also can't work out why so many teams wanted to draft him either. So it could well be that he's got a really good reputation with coaches, and a lot of people have said this kid's got the right attitude. Maybe he's in there because he's fiercely competitive and he's well thought of. There could be intangibles there that we can't see on paper that mean he's a really good body, for camp and whatnot. So I don't want to necessarily talk him down because I can't find a good stat.
Disparage him. I don't know the guy, but I'm just like, I obviously don't know him because I can't get stats on him either. So if
he's there for a reason.
Let us know. Yeah, he's got to be there for a reason. I mean, then we look at the one that I see as having a bit of an edge against Lewis and possibly Person in Kobe. Oh, it's not Lewis. Yeah, so the other Lewis, Kobe Lewis. So he went from Central Michigan to Purdue to Florida Atlantic. His best season was 2019 at Central Michigan, 182 attempts, 1,074 yards, 5.9 yards on average, and 12 touchdowns. Also a receiving threat, I suppose. 23 receptions, 164 yards, and that's a 7.1 average. No touchdowns there, though. I need to do a bit more research, but I'm going to guess it was an injury and obviously entered the transfer portal because his production did dip, especially at Purdue. However, his last season at Florida Atlantic, 85 attempts, 412 yards, 4.8 yards average, and then 3 touchdowns with 100 receiving yards from 18 receptions. Okay, that's fine. But then you throw into the mix kick and punt returns as well. And as we've said before, that's going to be a big thing where the kick and punt return team now is going to be, there's going to be such a strategy behind what they're going to be doing. Having players like this that can give you a different play style when it comes to receiving that ball and hitting a hole. His last season, Florida Atlantic didn't do a lot of it. He had 4 returns for 91 yards, so 22.8 average. His best season, again, was 2019 at Central Michigan. 15 returns, 359 yards, so 23.9 is the average there. Didn't take it to the house, but that is an extra skill set that we're going to be looking at. And I know Harvard's going to be looking at that thinking, is that another weapon? What are your thoughts on that, Mitch?
Yeah, I think when you're looking at a selection for that backup wide receiver, running back 4 role, the more you can do, the better. And special teams is so key to that. So if it wasn't for the fact that our cornerback room and our wide receiver room has so many returning, talents in that group, I probably would say that it would factor into this decision. But I genuinely think Helani or Person Jr. are probably the 2 scrapping it for running back 4 / or to be fair, both of those could see practice squad. Honestly, I could happily see Helani and Person on the practice squad.
Well, I think Kobe and Tameric, I think, are camp bodies at the moment.
As it stands.
Quick comment from Eric Gilbertson. Caught you all live. Thank you so much for tuning in, dude. He'd like to keep 4 running backs. There have been too many times where our running back room's decimated with injuries and we run out of options. I completely agree. I just think there's going to be better usage of the roster. And as Mitch has said, Helani in Person will go into the practice squad and we'll keep our fingers crossed that they stay there. If not, then there'll be plenty in the free agent market. There's always guys posting Instagram videos going, still at it, and just waiting for someone to pick up a phone. So that's what I think on that. I think I put them as 4. I put 4 running backs here purely because I just had to group those other guys in there somewhere, to be very honest. And Mitch has said he thinks, again, they're going to be camp bodies and then they're going to go into the practice squad, 2 of them at least. I don't think there's any surprises with who's going to be included, specific roles. Ken Walker's going to get the majority of that. I just want to see Zach Charbonnet making those hard yards up the gut. Kenny McIntosh, I think, will be a fantastic receiving threat there. But then, as K9 and Charbonnet have both shown throughout college and last season, they can also be receiving threats. So, and Grubbs come out and said he wants everyone to be an eligible receiver who can. So let's wait and see. So
George Fan.
George Fan. You go. Yeah, you've got to give him that contract for some reason, haven't you? With that and the fact we don't know what's going to happen with Abe Lucas, although he is now training without a knee brace and shifting some big tin. So let's have a see. Shall we move on to the wide receivers? Because we'll go on to the perceived depth chart thanks to ESPN. Now, this is obviously all before the season, before all the cuts, and we know exactly what's happening. But we're looking at this at the moment. If we go wide receiver 1, 2, and 3, and then we'll go through the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th string. So it speaks for itself. Wide receiver 1, DK Metcalf. Wide receiver 2, Tyler Lockett. Wide receiver 3, JSM. Although you may see JSM taking some snaps off Tyler Lockett this season, I feel. What do you think, Mitch?
I mean, the starters are obvious, right? That's a lock. I might have Jackson Smith in Jigba ahead of Tyler Lockett, though. I think he could be heavily utilized this year and see far more targets than Tyler. Although I think we'll still see Tyler Lockett targeted in his usual situations, red zone, third down, comeback routes, and sitting down after getting a first down. I think those situations are still going to happen a lot. But Jigba, I really do think could be seeing a lot of targets this year.
Good.
Regarding that second string, sorry, carry on. Are you going to comment on that?
No, I'm completely on board with you. I think everyone's waxing lyrical about JSN. He's been hitting the gym. He's making all the right noises in training camp before. I put that Tyler Lockett there more out of loyalty as wide receiver 2, but I do genuinely see JSN moving up to wide receiver 2 as Tyler Lockett eventually starts phasing out, because I reckon he'll probably have this season, possibly one more season, and then he'll call it quits. Now, second string. In no particular order, really. These are just second stringers. Laviska Shenault, Jake Bobo, more Bobo, and everyone's favorite, D. Eskridge. Yeah. Go on, Mitch. I know you're dying to say so. Obviously, but we've got player profiles after this as well, so we can go into it with a bit more depth. But on the initial thought train, Mitch, go on.
I don't think we see Shenault and Eskridge in the same 53. I think one of them's included for the purposes of being a yak threat, a special teams heavy contributor on returns. I don't think we are in a position where we need to take both onto the 53. Neither of them survived the practice squad. One of them has 1.3 million guaranteed, and the other one has half of his contract guaranteed. I think about 400k for Eskridge. I think he was 400k, and then there was about 800k that was could be redeemed if he was cut. So I do think that Shenault has a huge advantage over Eskridge because of Shenault not yielding much relief if he's cut cap-wise. And I just think the profiles are really similar, which we'll get onto next, so I won't say too much more there. But I would, if I was to just shuffle that slightly, I've got Derek Young in there just because I've got Jake Bobo as a red zone and first down merchant, which makes him a good swap in for Tyler Lockett. Not much of a yard after catch threat. Both of them, that's the same. Neither of them contribute on special teams particularly. The profile is quite similar. They achieve the same thing whilst looking very different doing it, granted, but they are much the same effect on the roster. They're both toe tapping, high body control, red zone threats, right? D. Eskridge, Shenault, similar. There's no actual replacement there for DK Metcalf as the physical, large wingspan, athletic, quick receiver, apart from Derek Young. So I think Derek Young deputizes very well for DK Metcalf if he misses time or gets himself suspended.
But body type, exactly. Skill set, I think we said this sort of last season as well. You look at it sort of who we've got, and they're very similar to the starting counterparts. And I completely agree with you about Derek Young. Just one comment that we just had from Gary Swain on YouTube. Eskridge will only make it if he lights it up as a return specialist. I agree wholeheartedly, Gary.
I completely agree. And it won't just be if he lights it up. He'll have to light it up significantly better than Shenault, because Shenault is guaranteed money and Eskridge is not. So if we decide to keep D. Eskridge and cut Shenault, we have essentially paid D. Eskridge more money. Well, not physically, but we've paid more for that wide receiver spot on the roster, if that makes sense. We might as well put Chenault's guaranteed money next to Eskridge's name without him receiving it, right? So completely agree. Good point, Gary.
let's we'll rattle through the rest on this, because then we've got some player profiles, and Mitch has done some handy dandy visuals for it as well. Very impressive, everyone. So if you are listening, by all means, jump over to the YouTube and have a look at them. We've got Aesop Winston Jr., who we had last season, I believe. It's a camp body. Then maybe on the practice squad. Cody White, who, again, keeps coming back. That's like a Tyler Mabry of the wide receivers.
He's my favourite to land on the practice squad and stay there as well. I think we could see some Cody White this year.
And then we've got 2 UDFAs in Hayden Hatton of Idaho, and we've got D. Williams, who we will come on to, because I know Mitch has got some stuff to say about Williams. So, shall we get on to the lovely graphics?
Let's do it.
Now, I've gone too far. Oh no! That's what happens. I'm just going to spoil it for everyone watching now.
All the spoilers.
Every time I do it, I've just got itchy trigger finger. That's what it is. So for anyone who isn't watching on YouTube, so you'll see in the top left-hand corner, and just to put it out there, this was all working swimmingly. I had the perfect layout for all of this until we got to some of the later wide receivers, and it all went to pot. So Mitch has put together in fact, Mitch, no, you tell everyone what it is.
So
we've
got some diagrams here. You'll have seen these from college scouting profiles, where you'll see hand size and weight and height and 40 times and vertical jump measurements and things all put onto the same diagram, so you get a span of where players' strengths and attributes lie, right? So with there being such a competitive scramble for 5 or 6 spots in our wide receiver team, I thought I'd point out on these diagrams a scale of 1 to 10 for each of these categories, and just see which diagrams look most similar, because I feel like there are some candidates on the roster that they're not the same player, but they excel in the same areas, like contributions to special teams or yak threats or the slot or red zone threat, etc. So if certain players all have the same strengths in those areas, these diagrams will look very similar. So we started with DK Metcalf, which is a really good place to start. Well done, Josh, for putting this one first, because I think we would all agree that apart from him not contributing on special teams at all, he's probably our most all-round receiver in terms of athleticism, physicality, red zone threat, durability, explosive. I mean, I'm thinking about them here, but I can read them off the screen. Explosiveness, size. I mean, when you look at this chart, it's out of 10. We've got 10 for size. We've got 10 for explosiveness, 8 for yak, 9 for durability, 8 for red zone threat, 1 for returns and teams, and then we've got him at 2. We've got him at 4 rating for in the slot, because when we have seen him making runs across field and on diagonals, he's actually excelled. He's been really difficult to match up with in that area. So our most rounded player has the most rounded looking graphic, and that shows me that it's working. What do you think?
I completely agree. Like he's I don't think anyone would argue he is the most explosive wide receiver we've got. He's proven to be durable. He is a massive red zone threat, but I just hope we get the balls up for him to go to, rather than trying to aim low at him all the time this season. Yak, the one thing I'd like to see is him get more yak, but I think 8 is about right. He does get some, but with his size, speed, explosiveness, he should be making more. Never want to see him on a returns team, because that's just an accident waiting to happen. And like you said, as a big slot, he has been effective. He's just underutilized there. But I'm hoping with Grubb wanting to move those receivers around and create some confusion with the defensive side, the opponent's defensive side, it's something we could see more. I have put at the bottom his stats since he's been with the Seahawks, and those yards are pretty impressive. He's had, in 5 years, 3,000-yard seasons. His first 2 seasons, Well, he had what 900 yards in 2019, and then if you go skip to 2021, it was 967. But even though that was under 1,000 yards, that was his best year for touchdowns. And then he's had touchdowns. You go 7, 10, 12, 6, 8. I'm hoping that he gets double digits this season again, and over 1,000 yards. But any talk, and I'll put it out there now. Anybody who entertains these trade DK Metcalf talks, get in the bin. When you draft a wide receiver like that, where we did in round 2, when he's potentially a first round talent, keep him for as long as you can, because we don't want to be going up against someone like that. Would you like to move on to the next one, Mitch?
Yep, let's move on. Who we got next? I don't know. I've seen it at a glance, but I can't remember the order we went in. So
I'll press this very lightly so we don't skip too far. Gentle touch is what I'm known for. There you go.
It's not true. And here we go. So this one's a fun one, because if you were to go back 5 or 6 years, this diagram looks extremely different. Mm-hmm. And you can, for anyone watching on the YouTube, you can see how thin that diagram gets at yak and returns/teams. When in previous years, those would have been really high scores. I mean, we all remember his bursting onto the scene, returning a kick for 6, right? He went house call on his first touch of the ball for Seattle, right? I believe. Yeah. So his weakest point, one of his 2 weakest points there, used to be his speciality. And when you look at Yak as well, with how rapid he was and how good he was at, not necessarily breaking tackles, but he was super elusive. He'd be able to beat a man with his athleticism. He doesn't really do that anymore. So what we've got left on that diagram are the things that we're still paying him to do. So if I told you that his durability and his threat in the red zone were, if I said to you as well, without telling you the name of the wide receiver, this person has a high red zone threat and high durability, you'd either say DK Metcalf or you'd say Tyler Lockett, right? You'd probably guess 1 out of 2. You had a 50-50 shot. If we were playing Seahawks wide receiver, guess who? You'd be. Yeah,
I think the caveat needs to be, if you base this on the last couple of seasons, because previously, if you looked at his, like I said, his early Seahawks career, like I said, that return teams, that would be up at an 8.
Yeah, you'd almost have a fully circular diagram. He'd be really high scoring on everything.
And then the last couple of seasons, he's gone, I'm getting old or getting on a bit. I want a career after football. I don't want to get smacked in the mouth every time I catch the ball. So I'm just going to take the ball and hit the deck. Yeah. Which, you know what? Self-preservation. No. You do you. The longevity. And when you just look at his, since 2018, when he came to the fore properly, he's had nearly 1,000 yards. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 1,000-yard seasons, near enough. He had 965 in 2018. And then 2019, 20, 21, 22 were all over 1,000 yards, with 2021 being his best at 1,175. Last season, bit of a dip with 894. But still, the guy is he's Mr. Reliable. He's hardly ever injured. If you throw him the right ball, he's going to come down with it. There's a reason why he needs to retire a Seahawk. He is Mr. Seahawk at this point. And I'm pretty sure there are a lot of teams around the league that would like someone like that, but I would like him to retire a Seahawk, please.
Especially on the money he's now being paid as well. Like the cap hit that he has now is reasonable for what we're expecting him to provide, which everyone feels better about. And also, it's just enhanced everyone's love for him, I think.
Well, I think it also helps that every new player that Seattle get, he's going to be helping them find a house. So it's like, just don't pay me all that money. Just every time someone comes over, just point them my way and I'll help them buy a house. I'm pretty sure, unless he's already done it, he's on the hunt for Coach Mike's house. Let's move on to the next one.
Yep.
JSN. Look at him. Fine figure of a young man there. The floor is yours, Mitch.
Yeah, this actually is pretty rounded. The only real low score here is return and teams, and he's not the huge explosive athlete that some of the other candidates are. He's also highly valuable to us. He's going to see contact in the slot, so we don't necessarily want him taking more bumps and bruises on teams. So he could do a job there, but we wouldn't rely on him for it. However, he's got very good scores there for slot, yak, durability, red zone, explosiveness, and size. And some people might raise an eyebrow there for rating him fairly well for durability, considering he broke his wrist just before the season started. But let's not forget the fact he had surgery. Was it 2 weeks before he missed? It was the first. I think it was in the first game against the Vikings in preseason. So he missed 2 preseason games following. It was either 1 or 2, and then made it back for the first game of the season. So whilst he did get injured, it's not like it's a reoccurring muscular injury or something like that. This was literally a broken wrist, and other people may then mention his hamstring that ended his last college career, season before we drafted him. But I'm not listening to this, people.
That was college, doesn't matter. He's in the NFL now.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. No, I do think he's highly durable. Once he was back with us after that the wrist injury, he was pretty much a mainstay, wasn't he? He didn't he missed any time. So
yeah,
really rounded.
Big things.
Agree.
Like I said, really rounded. Oh, I have just noticed after looking at this graphic that I did, he's got a Dallas Cowboys tattoo.
Yes, he does.
And as 2 podcast hosts that are quite heavily tattooed, I can honestly say that is an awful Dallas Mavericks tattoo, not like Dallas Cowboys tattoo, not just because it's the Cowboys, but it just doesn't look very well lined. Anyway, less tattoo talk. More, we love JSN, but please get that covered up. Thank you, please. Next, more Bobo.
Yeah, Jake Bobo. Now, the thing I want to say here, I don't know where exactly you put Ricky Hatton.
Ricky Hatton. Hey.
Ricky, that's the boxer. I don't know where you've put Hatton on this slideshow, but Hatton and Bobo have a really, really similar graphic here. Do you remember where you put Hatton on this?
Would you like me to flick ahead?
Yeah, flick on. Just see if we can find where he is.
Right, Hayden Hatton.
There we go. Yeah, so it's a remarkably similar pattern on that graph, and that is really telling. I think the reason Hayden Hatton wasn't drafted is extremely similar reasons to why Jake Bobo hadn't been drafted. We've picked up 2 guys with a similar skill set, with the similar things missing, which is essentially explosiveness and yak threat. And wide receivers that lack those 2 things as a wide receiver 3 option. If you're drafting someone late in the late rounds, you at least want them to be special teams, like a standout trait. You need something else. Yeah, you need to bring something else. But what Jake Bobo did so well last year was being a really reliable set of hands with fantastic body control and getting himself open without relying on explosiveness. And you can see there with the pattern on that graph. Now we flip back to Jake Bobo. They are really similar patterns. The one thing that Jake Bobo has that towers him above Hayden Hatton is his size. Literally his size. 5 inches taller, larger wingspan. He's a proven entity in the league. And it's for that reason that I think Hatton will have to do some really big things in preseason to get to the 53. The situations you would want to see Hatton used in are the same ones you'd see Jake Bobo in, apart from Jake Bober will get out there as a willing blocker and enjoy it every single time. We haven't seen that from Hatton, so that's where I am with those two.
As we've, I'm not going to skip over to Hatton because I'm going to go through some of his stats when we get to him. But next up, I went for Laviska Shenault. This is where my whole graphics, all the layout that looked fantastic, it was very uniform, just got royally messed up by this man, Laviska Shenault. But when I actually got all of his stats, I let it fly because, as we've said, I mean, you look at this from just every metric here: receiving, rushing, and returning are on these stats, and they're all quite telling. When you look at receiving, I mean, his best season was 2021 with the Jags, 619 yards off 100 targets, so 63 receptions, 0 TDs though. He's not exactly a TD machine there. Rushing, which is something that you're going to have in your toolbox if you want to be part of this team now. Even there, his first season, 2020, 91 yards off 18 carries. Again, no TDs. Did score one rushing tutty for the Carolina Panthers. And then returning last season and the season before for the Panthers. So last season, off 6 catches, he got 167 yards with a longest of 37. Now, you can see why they brought him in. When he offers you a consistent pair of hands, he's available in the rushing game, and he's a returner. Mitch, would you like to go through your handy-dandy diagram for him?
Yeah, it's interesting because you mentioned there, based upon the stats, that he's not really a touchdown threat. And without really looking at stats, I ranked him very, very low as a red zone threat. And I know red zone threat and touchdowns aren't necessarily the same thing, because some players can punch it in from, as a deep threat, or they're breaking tackles and making long slaloming runs. But he's neither of those things. He's a toolbox, I think. Which means that he can, again, be brought in to cover multiple players in the system. He provides a really, really interesting return threat with the new return rules as well. Having two back, not having gunners that are going to be shooting into him as he's receiving it. He's actually going to have a bit of time to set up his angles and use his outstanding speed, to attack a gap. And I think we can scheme up some great stuff with Shenault. And also, having running backs that are also receiving threats. No reason you can't line up Laviska Shenault, as the running back, and then, have him shoot through a gap and be, a check down with upside and yak threat. So there's a lot they can do with Shenault that gives him an edge, in my opinion, over his big threat for his spot, which is D. Eskridge.
Yes, man. D. Eskridge. Going very much back to see, it's like I knew. It's like we rehearsed this. It's not. We just good. We know this very well as podcasters. Going back to what Gary said, Eskridge will only make it. Hang on. If he lights it up as a return specialist, in my opinion. I'm sorry, I've been burnt too many times. He's hurt me too many times. And I think it just shows the fact that the man, he spends more time riding the pine or on the physio table than he does on the field. I'll just quickly run through his stats. Don't worry. This is going to be a short segment. There's not a lot. So over the past 3 seasons, he has a total of 122 yards and 1 touchdown. Bear in mind, he was drafted in the 2nd round. And then rushing, he has a total of 74 yards. Returning, Of kickoffs, he has a total of 428 yards off 17 returns. Mitch, you want to take over because just talking about D. Eskridge makes me sad. I don't want to cry on a podcast. So the floor is yours, sir.
Well, I yawned while you were reading the stats. I was fighting it because I didn't want to yawn. I was trying really hard to.
You can see a yawn in someone's eyes where they're like desperately
tears
fighting
streaming.
it.
Yeah. It wasn't you talking. It was more the content. I think reading D. Eskridge's NFL stats to this point are dull, uneventful.
Let's not even talk about who we drafted him over. Let's just,
let's not.
That will make me cry. Yeah.
And here we are with a guy that we've set up this year to be very easy to cut. He's got competition all around him. It's time to show it, man. It is last chance saloon for D. Eskridge. Will he be an NFL wide receiver, or will he end up in the UFL in a year's time? We will find out this year.
Or
we can find out very soon, actually.
Sorry.
Yeah, let's not.
Allegedly, you know, blue sky thinking. That's all this is.
We'll
cut that.
Yeah, there's a chance for him. There's a role on the roster for a wide receiver like him, but we have recruited a guy very similar to him that has had meaningful snaps in the NFL and has to some extent proven some worth. Laviska Shenault has serious upside because no scheme he's been in so far has managed to repeatedly put him in situations where he can use that skill set. D. Eskridge has just not been available enough to be targeted to play to his skill set.
Is availability, and
that
is the ability this man lacks. So.
That is another factor for me that weighs in heavily when deciding which one of these players we carry onto the roster. One guy has stood up to it and one hasn't.
So a quick comment from C32 Tev. I'm sorry if that's wrong. You're gonna have to tell me how it should be said in the comments, or just your name's cool. With the new kickoffs, I see McIntosh and Shenault on return duty. Completely agree. Laviska's contract is Eskridge's ticket out of Seattle. My
is
friend.
That not Jonas Meister?
I don't think it is Jonas. Oh yeah, sorry. I was looking. I've not got my glasses on. You can tell I've got very tired eyes. I was looking at. Hi Jonas, how are you doing? Oh, so anyone that's Jonas, he was a guest on this. Go check out that pod. Member of the German SEAHAWKS, absolute legend. Hi Jonas. Yeah, I'm sorry. I will freely admit that picture did not look like you because I'm used to seeing you wearing a Seahawks cap in pretty much every picture now. But you are very right. We completely agree with you, and I owe you a beer when I come and see you in August in London. Next up, D. Williams. Now, I've put him in here as wide receiver, even though he's down as a defensive back. And the reason for that is mainly due to what he's going to be used for. But Mitch, I will let you wax lyrical about this gentleman.
Yeah, I mean, he's everything we've talked about with Eskridge and Shenault in terms of return specialization and a bit more. Like he is absolutely electric. If he's on our roster, he is top 3 return specialists in the league. Genuinely. The big question is, do they want to have a guy that is that niche on the roster, or would they rather have someone like Eskridge or Shenault that can be more useful in more situations, provide more cover? If they feel like they've got enough cover with 5 wide receivers and 3 running backs, with 2 on the special teams on practice squad, there could be a spot for D. Williams, genuinely. But what he can contribute to the roster on offense and defense, I don't know. So, I mean, he was feared in college. He was feared. Like, honestly, he was that good. He was that good at what he did. People were terrified of seeing D. Williams in space on returns. So it's quite exciting that we've got him. He was a name I really wanted to see sign as well. You know, when we finished the draft and we're kind of spamming refresh on websites to see which ones we pick up, he was one I was keeping an eye out for, and it did get a little fist bump out of me when we got it. But
It's
in
like
all reality,
one in bed.
Yes, yeah, it was. But with the Chenault signing for me has made that really hard to see him making the roster for me.
Again, unless he lights it up in training camp and they look at him and go, wow, with his skill set on returns, that is something we could use, because Chenault's going to get carried as a wide receiver anyway. I think that is a foregone conclusion for me. Whether I'm wrong, people feel free to tell me in the comments. But if we're looking at someone as purely as a special teams, whether it's returning or we have him as a gunner, or not that they're very effective anymore, but if you put him on special teams and keep him there, it's a pathway to the team, and it would be something quite exciting to have someone that every time the ball touches his hands on a return, he could take it to the house.
And everyone stands up and cheers.
Yeah. Oh, just hearing Lumen rock again. Our friend of the show, Dan Viennes, has said that over the last few seasons, Lumen has gone flat. I can happily say from being in Wembley, that wasn't the case for us. But this season, hopefully, we're going to see that rise again in the 12th man. And Mitch, soon, one day, you and I will be there too. When we go, we will be letting everyone know. And if you want to come and meet us or you want to join us, you let us know. Right, should we get on to the last one? We've already kind of gone on to him. This is Hayden Hatton, who was an absolute superstar at Idaho for the Vandals. His last 2 seasons. So 2022, 83 receptions, 1,209 yards, 16 tutties. 2023, 92 receptions, 1,226 yards, 9 tutties. As Mitch has said, very similar to Jake Bobo, minus a few inches of height, just to clarify that. And I think this is one of those camp bodies that we're going to hope will compete with Bobo for that spot. And we're hoping Bobo will stick, but he could make it to the practice squad, and we would hope that he stays there. With the wealth of wide receivers currently out there, you'd hope he'd be able to stay on the practice squad and we can keep molding him. That's my opinion.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to see him on the practice squad for me, because you don't need a Bobo backup, right? But Bobo's already a backup in terms of like the things that he's backing up. We've already got covered by multiple players in that we expect to be picked as the starting wide receivers or backup 2 or 3 wide receivers. So if you're picking wide receivers to be on the practice squad, I think they have to be specialists at something. Do you know what I mean? I think I just think that Ricky Hatton. It's Ricky Hatton. Oh my god, Hayden Hatton.
Every time,
it again.
I'm going to tag Ricky the Hitman Hatton in this on social media, and if he comes back, then yeah,
terrible.
Too busy in a pub getting some pies now, mate. A proper Lancastrian. Go on, Hitman.
He's not a field stretcher. He's not a field stretcher. Yeah. He is someone that you'll see toe tapping, toe drag swag, and lots of body control, and receiving the ball, diving catches, these things, and solid hands, really, really good catching hands. These are all really nice things to have, but we already have them, and we already have backups for the. Do you know what I mean? There's just a lot of him on this roster. Putting him on the practice squad means he'd be pulled in to back up a backup. For me.
Here we go. Sorry, Gary just chimed in again. Something tells me too slow, too small.
These
I wouldn't
days,
say that.
100% these days.
I still wouldn't say it to his face though, because he'd spin my head round and I'd be snoring on the floor.
100%.
I mean, with that, we've got one left. And then
Yeah.
we've got another comment that I really want to get to because it really makes our day having that type of feedback. Derek Young, Mini Metcalf, in my opinion. I think the overriding thing here you see, and I'm just going to chime in here, is durability being at 2, which is spot on. There's theories about that for me. Is that coming from a school like Lenore Ryan not being conditioned properly to play this level of football, and it's having its toll on him? I just want to see him do something that seems every year we talk about him. We're waiting for him to have some sort of breakout game. It's just not happened. And yeah, so he's been with us for 2 seasons, be his 3rd, and we've only got 1 season's worth of stats, and that's 2 receptions from 2 targets for 24 yards.
Yeah,
that's a man on the bubble for me.
It's a man on the bubble, but let's not forget that if you look back over the last 2 or 3 years, outstanding contributors on teams, players like Ballor, players like John Rattigan, Derek Young's in that conversation. He's in that bracket of super consistent, really athletic, reliable when not banged up. He provides a lot of value on teams, albeit in the old returning system as a gunner. He's a very interesting weapon for Jay Harbaugh to have on teams. I think he edges the 6 for me as a like for like, albeit a B-list version of, or possibly C-list version of DK Metcalf, but he has an awful lot of value outside of just that. He brings more to the fore than just that for me.
Just slide into the roster and then put him on IR for the rest of the season, because that's where he'll be after a few games anyway. So Gary's saying again, could this be the year he finally breaks out? He has the potential, just injury prone to date. You're very right, and it's unfortunately it's the I'll say it again, best ability is availability, and he's not available to prove what he can do and why we drafted him. With that, Mitch, that was our running back and wide receiver breakdown. Surprise cuts. I am putting Young on there because I think with this new coaching staff, they're going to have no loyalty to anyone. They're going to look at him and go, "You're good, but you're never here." Eskridge, not a surprise cut. Just gone.
Yeah. Well, I think he might be the only surprise cut there. I think he's the only candidate. I think anyone else. Oh, actually, maybe Jake Bobo.
Ooh. Okay, it's going to get some hate.
I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be that guy because he's so popular. But it, depending on what this new system looks like, if they're playing, no, but he's so good on screens and blocking. I just do you know what?
As a wide receiver, he ain't going.
The entire fan base would be shocked if he was cut, right? So okay, there you go. There's my surprise cut, Jake Bobo.
Oh, cool. Right. Okay.
I hate that I've done that though.
I hate that you've done that too, and I think many of our listeners and watchers will do as well. I think when you look, I think Derek Young, D. Eskridge are my surprise and inverted commas cuts. I think you look at people like Winston, White, Hatton, practice squad bodies. D. Williams might make this a special teamer.
Gary, my guy.
Gary, you are on it today. You can see this coaching staff. Don't you side with Mitch. Do not do it.
It would be the second worst decision they made since taking down the photos and the pictures.
You know what? If they don't put him, I'm going to come back on a pod. I might screen grab this just with you two on there and be like, "Ha! There you go. But it's not going to happen. I'm going to will that into existence. Jake Bobo will be a Seahawk this coming season.
For the record, I do hope he is. I really do hope he is. But if I've got to pick someone on, no, if you force me to pick someone as a shock, that's my shock. Okay, you took the most obvious one with Derek Young because of his durability. Everyone wants the Eskridge cut, so that's not a shock.
Running backs, I think those top three we've got there, I think they're staying. I don't think there's going to be surprise cuts. Like you said, it's going to be Halani and Person. I think are the two that will probably make it to the practice squad. The other two camp bodies, just a bit of competition for everyone. Agree?
Agree. Completely agree.
Excellent. Just before we sign off, massive thank you to everyone who has tuned in, who's commented. By all means, like I said before, like, share, tell your friends, tell your mum, your dad, your sister, your brother, your auntie, your uncle. We don't care. We just like having people like you interact with us when we do these lives, and we try and do as many lives as possible because this is a community podcast. It's by 12s, for 12s, with 12s. We're 12s, you're 12s. I've said 12 too many times. If I'd kept count, I could have tried and got to 12 12s, but I'm not going to try. But with that, we love people who tune in. And Mitch, were you counting there?
I think you said it 8 times, but
oh, damn it, 4 more, I would have been on a roll. With this, I just want to say a massive thank you to Sean Thompson. You blokes have a bloody good show. Thank you so much. It means a lot to us. We put a lot of work into this. We don't get paid for it. If you do want to contribute at all to keep not even the lights on, because we do this anyway, we do have a buy me a coffee. Where is it? Here we go. Yeah, buy me a coffee. It's usually in the description thing. But do you know what? We would much rather you guys like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share so you can keep up to date. Join our Discord. We've got loads of members in there as well at the moment, and it's still growing with some fantastic contributions. Unfortunately, I'm not in there a lot because I'm a dad and I just don't pick up the Discord app very often. Mitch, however, is on it. And I mean, with that, Mitch, is there anything you'd like to say to everyone before we sign off?
There is. I am currently putting together our 12 Talk Fantasy League on Sleeper, and we would love for the regular contributors to be in there in that chat room with us, drafting with us, competing with us this year. It's going to be a best ball league. We're going to do it a little differently to a lot of other leagues. More on that next week. I might put up some a bit more information about what we're going to do, but it will be a bit different, and it will be free for anyone to play. We're not going to be playing for money. It's just going to be for banter and for fun, and to further our community and get some interaction with our great fans. So definitely join the Discord and come and join in with our fantasy.
Spot on. Also, we're going to be guesting again on the Hawk Zone Rundown with Bryce and Ryan. I think we're recording that next week. So stay tuned for that. We'll make sure we share it so you guys can hear that as well. And we've got some guests that'll be coming up on here soon. We've got a few lined up. I'm just trying to figure out where they're all going to go and how. But if you'd like to appear, give us a shout on socials. Mitch and I will happily get back to you. We'll try and get something sorted out. At the moment, it's just me juggling work and trying to get back into this, and Mitch just juggling his hectic social and love life, really.
You've done me dirty there with that. You know more about it. You know more about it than I do, apparently.
I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. But anyway, from me, from Mitch, I just want to say massive thanks to everyone. Before we go, just another couple of comments. So thank you very much, Gary. You can see the amount of work you guys put in. It means a lot. The pride, and you don't have socials, sorry, but Gary, message us somehow, whether it's going to be on here or whatever. We'll find a way and we can get you on as a guest as well. But without further ado, Mr. Mitchell, are we going to sign off with a little bit of Slim Genix and a massive Go Hawks?
I can't think of a better way. Let's do it.
Beautiful. Right, have a great weekend, everyone. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.